Okay, so uh, we will start with the module 5. So basically, module 5 is very lengthy. So, but before actually finishing module 5, I will just tell you some of the things. One, two topics we will see in module 5, then quickly we will move to module 6 and 7. So after finishing 6 and 7, very quickly by next weekend, uh, I think the date is by 7th or 8th if we finish module 6 and 7, or by 10th maximum. So after that we will have leisurely more time to finish the rest of the module 5. So anyway, only one question we can ask irrespective of the length of the module. So the minimum things which are needed for the fat, first I will finish that, and then happily leisurely we can finish the remaining part of the fifth module, because fifth module itself is like we can prepare 60 marks questions from that. So many topics are there and so much concept is there. So okay, so this module 5 is about the satellite link design. So in the link design, what is happening, we have to determine what is the amount of signal to noise ratio which we have to maintain, or what is the amount of transmitted power which we have to radiate from the transmitter, either in the uplink or downlink or both combinedly. So to understand how much power we have to radiate, first we should understand what are all the losses which are going to occur during the propagation or within the receiver. So for that, we have to account for many types of losses. And the main types of losses are these four types of losses in the uplink and downlink transmission. So you can write. So these are broad areas. So various losses that occur in uplink or downlink. Free space losses is also known as path loss. So some people call it as path loss, or some people also called as free space path loss. Okay, so all these equations will be there, so we have to cater to them. So antenna misalignment losses, AML, and then atmospheric losses, atmospheric absorption losses. Okay, so within this antenna misalignment loss, there are two types. One is the pointing loss, and the other one is polarization loss. Okay, so basically in this link design, so as I told, we have to determine the signal to noise ratio which is available. Basically this they are called as carrier to noise ratio. Here in the satellite communication they call it as carrier to noise ratio. So if you know like what is the minimum amount of signal or received power needed by the receiver to demodulate or to receive the signal needed by the receiver. Okay, so that is called as receiver sensitivity. Each receiver has its own sensitivity. Below that, if the received power is below that, receiver cannot perceive anything. It cannot receive or demodulate anything. So this is the minimum amount of signal power which has to reach the receiver. So over and above this, so how much you have to transmit at the transmitter? The general logic is like I am telling through common sense, right? So how much you have to transmit at the transmitter, PT, that is the transmitted power. So you should first know how many losses are there in the propagation environment. So one is path loss, one is this receiver feeder loss. So within the receiver, internal noise will be there. So that is the receiver feeder loss. So then different types of losses like rain attenuation or cloud attenuation or oxygen absorption or stratospheric absorption. Different things are there. Then similarly, this electromagnetic wave may be scattered or diffracted or whatever whenever it is striking some obstacle. So in satellite communication, we generally don't have that much severe problem with scattering and diffraction. So overall, what you have to do is you have to list out what are all the possible losses that can occur during the propagation. So you might have sent it in vertical polarization, and due to the obstacles and scattering, it may have slightly changed its polarization. So like if the receiving antenna is also tuned to the same vertical polarization, during the propagation there is some polarization mismatch, so the wave might have undergone some depolarization by some amount of theta degrees. Like let us say if you are having vertical polarization, then the electric field will be in 90 degree, let us say, or electric field vector is along the y axis. Now, due to this depolarization, why this depolarization is occurring when this waveform or wave is moving in the free space from satellite to Earth. So there are a lot of atmospheric effects or scattering or all these things may happen, and it may cause the depolarization. So by some amount of angle theta degrees. So maybe which you have sent in 90 degrees, the electric field vector which was aligned with the y-axis, it may have changed it to some 70 degrees now due to all these effects. And the receiver antenna, if it's pointing to 90 degrees, then it will encounter this polarization loss. Okay, so it will be mapping, it will be receiving, trying to receive in the vertical polarization. So because the information which it has is only that much. So like we are just telling that vertical polarized wave will be sent, you receive that. So if you are sending vertical polarization and if you just tell the receiver to receive it, it will obviously try to receive the vertical polarized wave. It doesn't have any knowledge about whether it has undergone depolarization or not. So that will cause some dB. So that much loss will be there. So that is like cos theta, we have to compensate for that. S- So cos theta first we have to evaluate and then convert into dB scale. So many dB of power is to be added extra to compensate for this depolarization. Okay. Then pointing loss is like if this antenna is seeing downwards like this, let us first I will draw a line. So the main beam of the satellite antenna is like this, let us say. So then the earth station's main beam should also be pointed towards that direction. So this is the look angle. So otherwise, sometimes what can happen is this misalignment may happen. Like if the main beam of the satellite is coming in this direction and this fellow is oriented in this direction. Okay. So the main beam of the earth station antenna is this side, looking at this side. So then what happens is uh, the satellite does not change its direction because it is fixed. And so you are facing towards some other direction instead of pointing it towards the satellite antenna. This earth station antenna's main beam is pointed towards something else. So if it is pointed to something else, then the actual place where this is being received, it will be at a lower power level. So if you draw one line like this, like this, so this is the main beam. This will be some definitely some dB below that. so 3 dB below or 2 dB below. So that much loss will occur. That is called as the pointing loss or the mismatch loss. So you have to exactly point toward your main beam should be pointed exactly towards the main beam of the satellite. So then only it will be receiving the maximum power. So what is this? This is a receiving antenna. Earth station as a receiving antenna. Antenna parameters are following reciprocity. So the main beam is here means what? It is radiating or receiving maximum energy from that direction. If it's a receiving antenna, it is able to receive maximum energy from this direction. So it should be exactly pointed towards the place where the satellite antenna is radiating. So for this satellite antenna, this is the main beam. So main beam is like the point where satellite radiates maximum energy. So this point where it is radiating maximum energy should match to the point where this earth station can receive maximum energy. So then we don't have any pointing loss. But otherwise, if you are not following that, if this is slightly misaligned, then we get a, if the look angles are not properly matching, so then we get this pointing loss and polarization loss, as I told, based on the type of polarization. So information that a wave will come in horizontal polarization or vertical polarization, the receiver will be looking only in that direction and it will not have any information about this depolarization thing. So even even after compensation also it doesn't have any knowledge, so as if it does not suddenly become intelligent, but that much cos theta dB if you are able to provide, it can compensate for the loss which has occurred. So I will show you good diagrams for this so that you will understand it. Okay, so coming back to our point, the point is like this you go on listing how many losses are there. So generally we do all this in dB scale. So this much dB path loss, this much dB receiver feeder loss, this much dB antenna misalignment loss, this much dB polarization loss, this much dB rain attenuation, this much dB cloud attenuation, this much dB oxygen absorption. So all this you list out, and within the receiver, thermal noise of the receiver, and whatever is there, all that you write it. So you will get some dB, right? X dB. So XDB or for the losses needs at least YDB to understand the received signal. So overall X plus YDB should be there. Like uh, how much you have to transmit at the transmitter is PT should be more than X plus YDB so that you will be able to overcome all these losses in the propagation medium as well as give something to the receiver which it can understand. Okay, so let us say 100 dB losses are there and receiver needs at least 20 dB to understand the signal receiver sensitivity. So then 120 dB is the minimum thing which you have to give. So above this 120 dB, how much you are giving, that is called as the link margin. So link margin is the like how large is the transmitted power after deducting the losses and receiver sensitivity. Okay, so in some, so this is called link budget actually. So generally very famous in all types of communication, wireless communication also there is a link budget. So there what we do is, there also the kind of idea is same, how much uh, so there the type of optimization we link budget is there. Even in optical communication also there is a link budget. So but they are mainly like how far the signal can go. Like in wireless communication it's like this tower is there, and at a given transmitted power, so they try to fix that transmitted power. This much dB is transmitted, and mobile has to receive at least this much of dB to be able to receive the signal, to understand the signal. So what they try to do is they will try to find out all these losses which are there in the medium, and in that main loss is path loss. Apart from this path loss, we have fading, we have shadowing, and many other effects are there, diffraction loss, this loss, that loss. So overall aim in that mobile communication is they will try to all these other losses are fixed. So based on all these calculations, they will try to get how much is the maximum allowable path loss. So this is fixed, this is fixed, all others are fixed. So what is the maximum allowable path loss at this much radiated power? So once you know maximum allowable path loss is this much, then you get what is the maximum distance between the tower to the cell phone or the mobile unit. So that distance they will get, and that will be fixed as the radius for the radius of the cell. So in cellular communication, the geography is divided as cells. So at the center of the cell, we assume that the base station is there and it is covering this entire cell. So that is how this D. So using all these equations, we come to know. So similarly, in optical communication also, they want to know what is the maximum length of the fiber that can go. Receiver wants at least this much power, and how much has to be transmitted at the transmitter, so that after traveling this much distance, so there they have different kinds of losses like bending loss, splicing loss, dispersion loss. There the parameters are different, but overall aim is same. So the link budget is a very important concept in all these communication systems. So basic aim is like the transmitted power should be able to cater all the losses and at least give some amount of signal to the receiver which it can understand. Okay, so it's a simple like how much money you have to earn. So you have to earn so much that after meeting all your expenses, you have still something left in your account. So that is normal budget, financial budget. Otherwise, you will run into losses. So here there is no concept of running into losses because no one will give you that extra power. There is no loan or nothing like that. So we have to plan. Otherwise, what will happen is that outage will occur. Okay. So generally we call it as link outage. So if the fade losses or fading goes beyond control, okay, beyond control. So you planned something, this much dB of losses are there. Suddenly, more than that loss will occur. In wireless communication, it is quite famous. It is called as fading. So sometimes we get deep fades. So when you get a deep fade, suddenly 30 dB or 50 dB signal will be lost. So when you go inside a tunnel or when you are in between two buildings where there is no coverage or something like that, so we undergo deep fades. So whatever planning you have done, whatever creativity you have shown till that time, all that will be wasted and the call will get disconnected. So similarly, even in the satellite communication, you have studied in the second unit, some people have written what is that sun transit outage. Okay. So sun transit outage is like when this satellite has come in between the earth and sun. So this is sun, this is earth. So we have written that the sun is a microwave source of heat and light. So it will irradiate the satellite with so much Kelvin of temperature. So 6000 Kelvin to 10,000 or how much, that much Kelvin. So that will be converted into the thermal noise. So thermal noise is KTB, something like that. So that much additional noise has suddenly come unplanned. You were just planning about this path loss, antenna feeding loss, and all that, but suddenly this much solar radiation has come, solar flares. So it is defying all your calculations. All your planning is gone because this much temperature, it will contribute to a lot of dB of thermal noise. So definitely, let us say you planned a link margin of 10 dB. So all these losses are all losses plus receiver sensitivity, let us say 200 dB. Okay. And transmitted power is 210 dB. Therefore, link margin is 10 dB. So 10 dB up and down you can tolerate, but suddenly this much dB, 1000 dB or 500 dB variation, if it's suddenly there, you cannot tolerate, and it will go into the negative margin. So the link cannot perform as desired. So it will be outage, like the communication is lost. So whenever the communication is lost, what you have to do? Okay. You have to put a toothpick in your mouth and wait till it comes out of that outage. Okay, so nothing else can be done. Right. So this is the overall idea of this module 5. So different, so all the calculations are made in dB scale. So why this dB is so much popular? So many types of dB notations are there, or dB watts, how much dB it is above the watt, 1 watt, or dBm. dBm is like compared to milliwatt, how much is the dB? And already we know if you are calculating for the power, then you have to put 10 log of that quantity in order to convert to dB scale. And if it's a voltage, then you have to put 20 log. Okay. Uh, but here generally we put only 10 log only because all the units are more or less power units only. So then dBi is there. So dBi is the gain of the antenna. So gain of the antenna with respect to isotropic source. So isotropic radiator. Okay, so that's why this I has come because of the isotropic. So isotropic radiator gain is how much? 1 or 0 dB gain because it is radiating equally in all the directions. Its gain is 1 in normal scale, and in dB scale it is 0 dB. Now your directional antenna, how much good it is compared to the this omnidirectional or isotropic antenna, that defines the gain of the antenna. So generally we refer it to dBi. So how much dB is it above the isotropic antenna? Like that, different values are there in the dB scale. So, but why they have gone for this dB is one thing is the multiplication and division operations can be converted as addition and subtraction operations. Like suppose if you want to do x by y, if you put log x by y, it becomes like log x minus log y. So it's like x dB minus y dB. So the division is converted into the subtraction operation and multiplication is. So actually, why do we need to convert like this? So what is the point in converting to dB scale and then back to normal scale is to like so if you go for the dB scale, so in dB scale, the numbers are within understandable or controllable range. Okay, so what does this mean is like in general, if you have a value of 1 lakh, okay, so 1 lakh is how much? This one. So x is equal to 1 lakh. So this seems to be a very big number. And if you just apply dB, so this will become 10 log base 10x. So it is 10 log 10. This is x is how much? 10 power 5. So this 5 will come outside, I think 50 dB. Okay, so it's not so much intimidating or overwhelming. So 1 lakh or even 10 lakhs. So suppose you have some distance. So d is equal to 40,000 kilometers, and find out d square. D square is 40,000 into another 40,000. So that becomes very much cumbersome to calculate. So if we go for the dB scale, distance in dB is how much? So 40,000, you apply the this one logarithm for that. So some uh, lesser value will come, and which is manageable. So that is one of the techniques. So it's only a mathematical technique. So suppose if your numbers are very much widespread, even in the graph also when we write research papers. So if you have very far off values, one value is here, another value is here, another value is somewhere here, so they are very much far away from each other. So what we do is this y-axis, we try to plot it in the log y. So if we plot it in the log y, all these points will come near to each other and it becomes somewhat understandable. So if you go for the dB scale, that is one advantage. Okay, so because if you calculate 100 and 1 lakh is how much, or 10 lakhs, this is 1000. Okay, so this is one, this is another one. But in the dB scale, this becomes 2 dB. This becomes how much? 20 dB. This becomes 60 dB. So you see, this is 100 and this is linear scale. There is lot of difference of magnitude. But once you convert into the dB scale, they become comparable. So for all these reasons, the dB scale is quite famous in calculating all these link design equations. Okay, so let's see how many are there. Okay, 48, nice. So then we can derive a quick expression for the path loss. So very interesting. So by now I think you have got an understanding of what is going on here. So basic aim is to calculate all the losses and then find out what is the amount of transmitted power in order to design the links with sustainable quality. So that is the thing going on. For that, path loss is one factor. Then receiver feeder losses. Within the receiver, there is thermal noise. So once we go within the receiver, you get those kind of formula like I think some of you might have seen in another subject, PTRP or analog communication. So the overall noise figure is there. Then noise figure minus 1 into the absolute temperature. If you do, you will get the equivalent noise temperature of that device. Then overall equivalent temperature of all the stages is like some T1 plus T2 by G1 plus something like this, T3 minus 1 by G1 G. So some formula like this that is called as Friese formula. So overall of these many n-staged two-port network, what is the overall equivalent noise of all these stages? So once you find out the equivalent noise temperature, we can find out something called as C by N. So there are three ratios in the satellite communication to characterize the quality of the link. One is the general one is S by N. signal to noise ratio, but here they call it as carrier to noise ratio. And the other one is EB by N naught, which is mainly used in digital communications. So if it's a digital link, digital satellite link, then we go for this EB by N naught. EB is the bit energy divided by the noise in that bit, or bit duration. And apart from these two, there is another thing called as G by T ratio. G by T is the ratio of the gain of the antenna divided by the equivalent temperature, noise temperature of the receiver. Okay, noise temperature of the receiver. So later we can also prove that C by N ratio is proportional to the G by T ratio. So if you specify the G by T ratio of your link, then we can understand how much quality link it is. So this is just like S by N ratio. So if it's more, then we can say that we are confident about our design and the link will be stable. And if the G by T ratio or the C by N ratio is less, then we cannot give any guarantee about our design. So these noise figure calculations are also part of this module 5. Okay. So then what is this path loss? So it all starts with a isotropic antenna. So isotropic antenna is radiating equally in all the directions. So let us say it is radiating a power PT, transmitted power is PT. Then at a distance R from the transmitter, so it is electromagnetic waves travel in spherical wavefronts. So at a distance r, how much is the received flux? So let us say this is the transmitted power Px, radiating Pt amount of power. Away from it at a distance of r, you have a receiving antenna. So how much power will be received by that receiving antenna? That is the thing which we are going to find out. So at this receiving antenna, what is the flux density of this electromagnetic wave? So flux density is like uh, how much is the power per unit area. Okay, power received per unit area is called flux density. So how much power will be received per unit area is Pt by 4 pi r square. So, sir, how did you get this 4 pi r square? Is we are assuming an imaginary sphere, okay, and the surface area of the sphere is this much 4 pi r square. So this big sphere you imagine, okay, sphere, not a circle, sphere, okay. So inside that sphere, at the center of the sphere, you have this isotropic radiator or any antenna. So at a distance r from it on this big imaginary sphere, how much flux density is there? That is the power per unit area. Okay, right. Okay, so this is the flux density. So watt per meter square, but we are interested in how much is the actual received power. So received power will be equal to flux density into the, at that point that much flux density is there, but what is the characteristic of the receiving antenna? Receiving antenna will have its own effective aperture. So the other day we were discussing about physical aperture. So this much opening is there for the antenna, but all that opening may not be useful. So we multiply with the aperture efficiency to get the effective aperture. So effective aperture is the actual area where that antenna is lit up. Right. So flux density is Pt by 4 pi r square into AE. So AE is the effective aperture. So basically this is the case for the isotropic antenna. So if you see, this is only the path loss which we are telling. Like later on, we will again get in terms of lambda and r, but overall path loss is this one. So it generally follows most of the things in nature follow the inverse square law. So this is also inverse square law. As you go far away from the radiator, the received power or the received intensity will be reducing as per the r square. So even if it is light or gravitation or electric charges or whatever it is, something new, it is also following the inverse square law principle, because after all electromagnetic energy is also it's similar to the light energy, right? Okay, so we can finish this part of the derivation. So this is for the isotropic antenna, but if you have a real antenna with a gain, so isotropic antenna does not have a gain, but suppose if you have a real antenna or any other non-isotropic antenna, so it will have a gain of GT. So if it is sending a power of PT, if it's radiating or transmitting a power of radiating a power of PT, then at a distance of at some distance or overall, if it's radiating a power of PT and if its gain is GT, that means it is radiating PT into GT amount of power. So at a distance of r, the received flux will be PT GT by 4 pi r square. Okay. So that is the difference between the isotropic antenna and the real antenna. So even though isotropic antenna is radiating PT amount of power, the received flux will be only PT by 4 pi r square. Here, the given the fact that this antenna has a gain of GT, that will get multiplied, and at a distance r, the received power will be or the received flux will be PT GT by 4 pi r square. So this gain will be uh, coming into picture, and so even though it's radiating only PT, it's looking like the effect is looking like as if it has transmitted PT into GT. So that PT into GT we call it as effective isotropic radiated power. So had there been isotropic antenna which is radiating PT into GT, then this much flux would have been there at the receiver. So effective isotropic radiated power. Or to get this much of received flux density, isotropic antenna should radiate PT into GT. But this fellow, since it is a directional antenna with gain, it is radiating only PT watts. Okay, so that is the meaning here. Then this AE can be expressed in terms of gain and receiver gain. So receiver gain can be written as, what is that? Yeah, 1 by 4 pi lambda square by 4 pi into AE, that is GR. Then AE is equal to 4 pi GR by lambda square. So, so there is a formula for gain and the effective aperture, lambda square by 4 pi. So if you send this 4 pi this side, you get 4 pi into GR. So what is GR? GR is the gain of the receiving antenna. So once you get this, so therefore the received power PR is equal to received power flux density into AE. This one we got this P. Now we will get PTGT into AE by 4 pi r square. AE is this much. So 4 pi. Okay, okay. So something like this. So I think somewhere something has gone wrong. Anyway, we will derive this in the next class. So this is the overall thing. So once you do all this, we have to convert into dB scale and understand how much loss will be there at a given distance from the transmitter. Okay, so I will stop here.